is Andrew Erskine, and I just want to first thank everybody for coming out today. Really appreciate y'all's time and just for being here. The title of this training is Side by Side, and it's how to work alongside volunteers. The purpose for this training is just how to lead volunteers and how to build relationships with the volunteers. The benefit from this training is just going to be that you're going to be able to leave this session just with some tools, organizational strategies, and some communication skills that you can use to help the volunteers accomplish the goals and the missions of the company just on a daily basis. And the company mission statement and the core values of the company, of y'all's company, Lakeview Camp and Retreat Center, are obviously extremely important for the volunteers to know. It's probably something that should be covered when they're in the applying to be volunteers, when they go through the background check and all the other things that they have to do at the beginning. It should be important that that's something that is stressed to them. And anytime we're talking about volunteers, anytime we're talking about just dealing with people in general, there's a lot of organizations, a lot of leaders, just like all of you in here today, the leaders of supervisors of departments here at Lakeview. There's just a lot of different leadership examples on dealing with volunteers, but probably the best one that we could look at is just the life of Christ and the examples that he set for us. And just Christ was able to work with volunteers, so to speak, throughout his life, and give us a good example. So today, we will talk about how we can treat volunteers like Christ treated those, who served under him, which is, really essentially, what volunteers do. They are just, serving. And the four aspects, of leadership that we're going to deal today, the four aspects, that you can really take, and use, in your certain departments and just across all of Lakeview as a whole, are just these four aspects of lead, feed, gather, and care, and they're just going to be really important in, this training process and just in developing, relationships and, just being able to retain and gain volunteers and just to be able to establish, just to be able to accomplish the goals that you have set for them. First one we're going to start off with today is lead. And, the first thing that you've got to do as a leader is just, provide support for them, support for the volunteers. You've got to, let them know what they're going to do and let them know that if they have any questions or concerns that, you're there for them. You're somebody that is, not going to be distant, somebody that's easy to communicate with. If they have any questions or conflicts, you're there for them, whether that's you as a leader or supervisor in your specific department, or whether that's just, an employee that you have set to do that within your department. It's important to have that. And, and it's really important also that you are able to just motivate your volunteers, able to stay in, just some sort of good communication there, the main things that you want to do are just provide, consistent positive feedback to them, let them know they're valued, give them reinforcement, and just recognition for their work, will go a long way. I know those things, take quite a bit of investment, but they're definitely worth it, definitely worth the effort there. We're going to continue talking about lead here. Being organized is just a really huge part of this as well. You got to know, how many volunteers you need for a certain situation, whether you need a lot or a little, or, just making sure that you don't waste their time by having too many or work them too hard by not having enough. It's really important to be organized as a leader. Also, you just need to lead them into an area where they can be their very best. You've got to be able to evaluate and see, probably some, screening or tests beforehand will help you to be able to place people in the right volunteer positions where they can best use their skills, strategies, and talents. And, communication is huge. Communicating is one of the biggest things that you want to do. You want to be really in constant communication with them on the vision, mission, and the values of the company. You also, with people that are, returning volunteers, repetitive, consistent volunteers, you probably want to keep communication with them, within, monthly or weekly or daily, just depending on, how often they volunteer. Another thing that you can do as a leader is promote them into leadership positions. You can grow them into a leader position, so that they can go, possibly recruit more volunteers. Your company can gain volunteers, and you can have your, another just reliable member and valuable member of your team. And, also it's important just to give, specific jobs and for the jobs that do need training, to make sure that you are place people in a position to get that training. The next one that we're going to talk about today is feed, and this is just all about giving the volunteer what they need to be successful. Without you, giving them the proper investment, pouring into them the right amount, they really can't be their full potential. They can't fully. Your company can't be at full potential without them doing that. One thing that is really important, probably in the, like I talked about earlier, just the background, the screening time. It'd probably be background checks. It'd probably be important to teach them information about the company. Giving them information is a big part of feeding. Just a brief overview of the organization, why the organization exists, how it's evolved, how it's grown. Just why you're there. That will give them the ability to just be able to believe in the organization, and just give them a better understanding of who they volunteer for and what the purposes are. It's a big thing too, is to model and show them the vision, to go along with teaching the vision. Then you're able to get them to truly believe and buy into the vision, and really accomplish the goals and the strategies that you have set for them. Just to continue on with feed, kind of like we talked about earlier, specific jobs are going to really need training. Specific tasks, like for instance, probably going and painting a wall. Probably not going to need a whole lot of training, unless they're just unfamiliar with using a roller. That'll be something, really quick. But, if it's something like, in food services, for instance, somebody needs help, somebody is trying to learn how to use, the grill, or to make something specific, you're going to have to make sure to have somebody, an employee, or you, the supervisor yourself, are going to have somebody that can train them, able to do that task and do it to the best of their abilities. And, constant support is another thing that's, we talked about earlier with the leader. These volunteers are going to, need to have somebody backing them up, showing them what to do, showing them, the ways, mentoring them into, just accomplish those goals. Also freedom to on the job. Obviously, some tasks are not going to need a whole lot of, support, as I talked about, but, you're just going to have to be able to not really micromanage at times, but you just want to be able to give them the freedom that they need to work on the job, while also, just finding that balance of giving them enough instruction, but also giving them the freedom to do the jobs that they need. Also a huge part of feeding is encouraging and motivating them. You can do this by giving them, more opportunities, by just praising them, just recognizing them, valuing them, just really making the effort to invest in them and show them that, that they're cared about, and that what they do accomplishes the vision, because people that serve, they just want to know that what they're doing is helping, serve a higher purpose. And especially at a place like, Lakeview, with a, just a Christ-minded purpose, it's just important to just encourage and motivate them throughout. The next thing we're going to talk about is gather. Gather, it's, just bringing bringing the volunteers together, bringing them in, getting more. It's really important to have an organizational plan that will promote the vision, so that the volunteer understands the mission and the goals behind the plan, so that they can support and, believe in it. And you can do these things, by first, figuring out where will they belong, what they belong to, and what is the mission. You can accomplish these by, as we talked about, the strategic, not the strategic, but the just having a questionnaire, as I stated there, just have a questionnaire when they first start off, when they first start their job, when they do the background check, when they do those kinds of things. Have a questionnaire, have a way for them to have a brief screening, so that at first you can at least put them into a position where they'll be able to use their skills and their talents. And just really, when we talk about gather, it's just to talk about earlier, just really being organized, just having ways to put the right amount of volunteers into specific jobs and tasks, not overworking them. As we talk about here, we always want to give them an opportunity to back out, especially the volunteers that are on a daily basis. Whether it's the ones that come in on RVs and are kind of highly skilled and able to give a good amount of help. We want to make sure that they have the opportunity to leave, that they don't feel obligated, that we don't overwork them. So even if it's just people that are local, that they have the opportunity to have choices and not be overworked, so that they don't quit. They don't get burned out. Those are things that we don't want them to do. You know, and a great way we can do that this can be done is by having a system where they can sign up, for certain jobs online. Having a database on the web, or like just even using social media sites like Facebook, just to give them an opportunity to sign up and have a choice, and just have a good organizational strategy in place, so that when you gather them and when you get them to when you have them, that you don't waste their time and burn them out, so that they will continue to stay. The last thing we want to talk about is care. And the first thing that you can do with care is, praising them, giving them, pat on the back, great job, we appreciate you, what you're doing is important. Another way that you can show you care is to get together with food, just simply physically meeting that need of food, whether it's after an event or, at the end of the year in a banquet. Those kind of things go a long way and just show people that, you care about them. Another way you can show this is by, protecting them, honoring their time. When you ask a volunteer to come out and work from 1 to 5, work them from that time from 1 to 5. Don't work them from 1 to 9. Don't work them from 1 to 7. You not only lose kind of like credibility, but it just makes them frustrated. It makes them not want to volunteer again. It's also bad to not use them for that whole time. If they block off a time from 1 to 5 or 6 to 7, or if they block out a weekend and you don't use them. If it's 1 to 5 and you only use them for 30 minutes, that frustrates them too, and kind of just makes them waste their time in the end, and makes them not want to volunteer anymore. Just continuing to talk about care, giving them the proper job training, kind of just what we've been talking about throughout here. You can't, somebody will you'll be able to show that you care by giving them this training and showing them that their job is important. Having good resources to do the job that you want them to do, giving them the resources to do the job that you want them to accomplish. For instance, the guys that volunteer all their time to mow, the grounds around here, just being able to give them and make sure that they have good lawn equipment, good lawn mowers, weed eaters, things like that, so that they can get a job, done the right way. And just recognize them so they won't get, you don't want them to burn out, and you want to be able to, focus on these things so that they can, won't burn out and won't get frustrated, And another thing, one of the most common things that's done with volunteers and organizations is we don't want to just dump and run. We don't want to just, as a company, as Lakeview, you don't want to just dump them off on a job and then just leave and never provide any support or recognition or praise, and just, they don't even come in contact with another person, especially with such a large organization that can happen. So you got to be mindful of that. You also cannot ignore them or fail to recognize their contributions, just make sure that they know that they're valuable, invest in them. The next thing that we want to talk about is just uniformity, just being able to have every single department, the whole campgrounds, all the volunteers being treated the same throughout the company, just have these 4 things, just have each leader, each supervisor working on those 4 things so that it can be uniform and consistent throughout. You want to give each member an opportunity to use their talents, you obviously don't want to give just everyone the ability to give public speaking, speak in public or in some form of that if they're not talented at it, but you just want to give each person the opportunity to use their gifts and talents, and if you see that a volunteer is would be more successful in a different department or doing another thing, get them to that point, because you don't want them to stay in your department and just end up getting frustrated and not feel like they're able to do everything that they can do and be their full potential. And another thing that we are going to talk about today is just conflict management. Make sure, one of the biggest things about conflict management is actually prevention. Just try to make sure that there's a good screening process, from the beginning, from the time that the employees are, do their background checks, things like that, so that, they're not placed in a volunteer spot that, would cause conflict or cause them to be frustrated, and do things the wrong way, just placement of the volunteers is essential, and when conflict does arise, you got to reconsider where you're at. You got to see, are you doing these 4 things of lead, feed, gather, and care, are you, and then the next thing you need to do is just sit down with them, sit down with that person, sit down with the people involved in the situation. A company the size of Lakeview can go through, many different conflicts with all the, from the difference of being, high schools for their community service hours, or the elderly people that come through the MAPS program. There's so many different volunteers that you're bound to have. So conflicts might arise. You're going to have to be able to have somebody in a position that can meet with them and resolve this conflict so that it doesn't continue to happen. And just to continue with conflict management, once you do talk to them, if you realize that it is their fault, or realize they need to be volunteering in another place, or you just may need to redirect them back towards the mission, back towards the goals, back towards the purposes of the organization, then that's what you need to do. But if they're unable to get back to the mission and the vision, then they need to be let go, because they don't need to be in a spot where they are able to, negatively affect the company and negatively affect the goals and the missions that are being trying to be accomplished. And just to conclude, these 4 aspects will help you work side by side with volunteers. They'll help you retain and gain members. They'll help you keep members, help people from getting frustrated. They'll help you properly value them. You'll help you show you how much that you need to invest in them and things like that. And this is what's going to help you be able to build those strong relationships. And just with that, that's how I will conclude this presentation. And I would like to open it up for questions if anyone has any questions. Thank you for your time, and thank you for letting me come in today. Thank you, Go.